Welcome to the Curiosity and Co podcast, conversations for the incurably curious. In a world racing towards fast paced answers, at Curiosity and Co., we slow down to explore questions that shape our inner lives and collective realities. This is a place for thinkers, readers, and the wanderers of the mind, those who find wonder in ideas and meaning in complexity. Hosted by a mind drawn to philosophy, psychology, and the hidden logic of the world, each episode offers a reflective dive into philosophy, science, psychology, and how we think, live, and relate to the world. Whether drawing from the timeless thinkers or modern scientific insights, the podcast invites you to stretch your perspective and see the familiar in unfamiliar ways. Tune in for the ideas, stay for the insight. Because curiosity isn't just a trait, it's a worldview. Hey everyone, and welcome to Curiosity and Co podcast. I'm your host, and if you're listening to this podcast right now, you have already made about 47 decisions today. Ever wondered, does more choice make you less happy? Or about the choice trap? Why having everything might leave you with nothing? What to wear, what to eat for breakfast, which route to take to work, whether to listen to this podcast, or one of the other 2.4 million available on YouTube and Spotify. And here's the thing, by the time you go to bed tonight, you will have made roughly 35,000 more decisions, some tiny, some huge, most somewhere in between. Now, if I told you that all those choices, all that freedom, all those options might actually be making you less happy, would you believe me? Today, we are diving deep into something called the paradox of choice. It's this fascinating idea that suggests the very thing we think should liberate us, having endless options, might actually be trapping us in cycles of anxiety, regret, and dissatisfaction. We will explore the psychology behind why your brain freezes in the aisles of biscuits at the grocery store. Here's some surprising research about what happens when you have too many dating options. And I'll share a personal story about a frustrating movie picking experience I had on Netflix. Plus, we'll dig into when more choice actually is better, and most importantly, what we can do about it. Because here's what I have learned, the goal isn't to eliminate choice, it is to understand how to choose better, worry less, and find peace with the decisions we make. So grab your coffee. Hopefully, you didn't spend too long deciding what kind to make, and let's dive in. First, the great toothpaste paralysis. Let me paint you a picture. It's a Tuesday night, you are at Target, you need toothpaste. Simple, right? You walk down the oral care aisle and suddenly you are staring at a wall of options. Crest, Colgate, Sensodyne, Tom's of Maine, whitening, sensitive teeth, cavity protection, Tata Control, gel, pest, charcoal infused, fluoride free, mint, wintergreen, cinnamon, fresh burst, whatever that means. 27 different options for something you will use for 2 minutes twice a day. And suddenly, the simple task becomes overwhelming. You start reading labels, comparing prices, wondering if the extra $3 for the advanced whitening is worth it. 5 minutes later, you're still standing there, no closer to decision, increasingly frustrated with yourself. This is what psychologist Barry Schwartz calls the paradox of choice, and it's happening everywhere in our lives. Schwartz argues that while having some choice is essential for our well being, it gives us control, let us express our preferences. There's a tipping point where more options become a burden rather than blessing. Think about it. When was the last time you went on Netflix and spent more time scrolling through options than actually watching something? Or opened a restaurant menu so extensive that you felt paralyzed? The problem isn't just the time we waste, it's what happens to us psychologically. When we have too many options, three things happen. First, we experience what researchers call decision fatigue. Our brains literally get tired from processing all the possibilities. Second, we become more anxious about making the wrong choice. With only two options, if you pick the worst one, well, that's life. But with 27 options, suddenly the pressure is on to optimize to find the absolute best choice. And third, and this is a kicker, even when we do choose, we are less satisfied with our decision because we can't stop thinking about all those other options we didn't pick. Schwartz calls this anticipated regret. We are not just choosing what we want, we are mourning everything we are giving up. But here's what's really wild. This isn't just about toothpaste or Netflix. This phenomenon is reshaping how we approach some of the biggest decisions in our lives. Second, when infinite options meet human hearts. Let me tell you about my friend Jessie. Jessie works at a local coffee shop, loves hiking on weekends, and has this infectious laugh that makes everyone around her smile. She's genuine, kind, and exactly the type of person you would want to introduce to your other friends. But ask her about her dating life, and suddenly this warm, confident woman becomes, well, paralyzed. Jessie joined dating apps 2 years ago, and these apps promised her everything: thousands of potential matches, detailed profiles, sophisticated algorithms, the freedom to choose exactly what she wanted. But after 2 years and dozens of first dates, Jessie isn't happy. She's exhausted. I can't commit to anyone, she told me over a cup of coffee last month. Because what if I swipe right tomorrow and find someone better? What if the person I'm supposed to be with is just one more swipe away? This is modern dating in nutshell. We have turned love into marketplace with infinite inventory, and it's making us miserable. There's actually research on this. Psychologist Dan Gilbert studied people in committed relationships and found something fascinating. People who met their partners in smaller social circles, through friends, at work, in their neighborhood, reported higher relationship satisfaction than people who met through dating apps or other large choice environments. Why? Because when you have fewer options, you do something crucial. You invest. You get curious about the person in front of you. You give the relationship time to develop. But when you know there are thousands of other options just to swipe away, you're always comparing, always wondering, always keeping one foot out of the door. And it's not just dating. I see this in career choices too. My generation was told we could be anything, do anything. That sounds liberating, but it can be paralyzing also. When every path is possible, how do you choose just one? I have friends in their 30s who still feel behind because they haven't found their passion. They have job hopped, tried different industries, gone back to school multiple times. They are searching for the perfect fit instead of making a good fit work. But here's what Jessie's story teaches us: the problem isn't that she has high standards, the problem is that she's trying to optimize for something that can't be optimized. Love isn't a math equation, neither is a fulfilling career. Sometimes the best choice isn't the perfect choice, it's the choice you commit to and build something meaningful around. Third, the science of too much. Okay, let's dig into the research because this stuff is fascinating. The most famous study on the choice overload was conducted by psychologist Sheena Iyengar and Mark Lepper at a gourmet market in Menlo Park, California. They set up a testing booth with fancy jams. On some days, they offered 24 varieties, on others, just 6. Here's what happened: 60% of the customers stopped at the booth when there were 24 jams, but only 40% stopped when there were 6. So far, so good for variety, right? But here's the twist: only 3% of the people who saw 24 jams actually bought one. When there were just 6 jams, 30% made a purchase. That's a tenfold difference. More options attracted more attention, but fewer options led to more action. This study has been replicated in everything from retirement plan enrollment to speed dating. The pattern holds. Too many choices lead to choice avoidance. But why does this happen? It comes down to how our brains process decisions. When we have a few options, we can easily compare them. Option A versus option B. We can hold both in our minds and evaluate them. But as options multiply, the cognitive load increases exponentially. Dr. Sheena Iyengar explains it like this. Imagine your brain as a computer processor. With a few choices, the processor runs smoothly. But with too many choices, we are asking it to run dozens of programs at once. Eventually, it starts to lag, overheat, and sometimes just crash. That's what happens when you stand frozen in the aisle of biscuits. But there's another psychological phenomenon at play here: opportunity cost salience. That's fancy talk for thinking about what you're giving up. When you choose the chocolate chip cookies, you're not just getting cookies, you're giving up oatmeal raisin, the snickerdoodles, the shortbread. With more options, there's more to give up, which makes every choice feel like a loss. Psychologist Barry Schwartz divides people into two categories: maximizers and satisficers. Maximizers want the absolute best. They research extensively, compare every option, and often feel regret even after making a choice because they wonder if they could have chosen better. Satisficers, on the other hand, a term coined by economist Herbert Simon, look for the options that are good enough to meet their criteria. Once they find something that satisfies their needs, they stop looking. And here's the kicker: studies consistently show that satisficers are happier, less stressed, and more content with their decisions than maximizers. Even when maximizers objectively make better choices, they enjoy them less because they are always wondering about the alternatives. This isn't just academic theory, this shows up in real life in profound ways. Maximizers are more likely to experience depression, have lower life satisfaction, and struggle with decision making paralysis. Meanwhile, satisficers get on with living their lives. 4. My Netflix disaster and what it taught me. Last Friday night, my friend and I decided to have our weekly movie night. We decided we wanted to watch something light, maybe a comedy, maybe a rom com, something to unwind after a long week. I opened Netflix and oh boy, hundreds of options, thousands maybe. Comedy specials, romantic comedies, action comedies, dark comedies, international films, documentaries that looked interesting. That series everyone has been talking about. I spent 45 minutes scrolling. 45 minutes. I'd find something that looked good, then think, but what if something's better there? I'd read descriptions, check ratings, watch trailers. My friend was getting increasingly frustrated, just wanting to watch literally anything and relax. We would almost settle on something, and then I would say, wait, let me just take one more minute and check one more category. I created this elaborate mental scoring system: plot, cast, runtime, how likely we both were to enjoy it. Finally, my friend grabbed the remote and picked the first thing she saw that looked halfway decent. It was a perfectly fine movie. Not amazing, not terrible, just fine. But here's the thing: I spent the first 20 minutes of the movie thinking about all the other films we could have watched instead. Was that new thriller better? Should we have gone with the documentary? What about that comedy special everyone was raving about? I turned what should have been a relaxing evening into an anxiety fueled optimization problem. And the worst part, my friend later told me she would have been happy watching anything. She just wanted to hang out and decompress. That night taught me something important. The pursuit of perfect choice can rob you of enjoying a perfectly good choices. If I had just picked the first movie that looked decent and met our criteria, I would have saved 45 minutes of stress and actually been present for our movie evening. This is what psychologists call the maximizer's curse. The better you get at finding optimal choices, the less you enjoy them because you're always aware of what else was possible. 5. But wait, when more choice is actually better. Now, before we completely villainize choice, let's pump the brakes a little because choice isn't inherently bad. In fact, in many situations, more options genuinely improve our lives. The key is understanding when choice enhances our well being and when it undermines it. Choice is most beneficial when, first, the stakes are high and the decision is irreversible. Choosing a college, a career path, where to live, who to marry, these deserve deep consideration because they shape your entire life trajectory. Here, having options and taking time to choose is crucial. Second, when you have genuine expertise in the domain, wine enthusiasts enjoy having 200 wine options because they have the knowledge to navigate those choices meaningfully. The variety enhances their experience rather than overwhelming them. Third, when the choice reflects your identity or values, having 15 different ways to customize your coffee order might seem excessive, but if that morning ritual is important to you, those options add genuine value. The problem arises when we apply this more is better mentality to low stakes everyday decisions. Do you really need 47 different breakfast cereals? Probably not. There's also a cultural component here that's worth examining. Choice overload seems to be particularly acute in individualistic cultures like the United States, where we are taught that having options equals freedom equals success. But research shows that people in more collectivist cultures, where decisions are often made within family or community contexts, report less choice related anxiety. When your grandmother tells you which person to marry, and I'm not advocating for arranged marriages, but just using this as an example, you don't lie awake wondering if someone's better is out there. Anthropologist Rene Levy studied this phenomenon and found that Americans spend significantly more time on routine decisions than people in other cultures and report higher levels of decision related stress. The point isn't that other cultures have it figured out and you don't. It's the choice exists within cultural context and our particular context might be setting us up for unnecessary suffering. Here's what I have learned. More choice is better when it serves a meaningful purpose, when it aligns with your values, expertise, or truly important life decisions. But more choice becomes a burden when it's just more choice for the sake of more choice. 6. The practical guide to choose better. So, what do we actually do with all of this? How do we navigate a world that's determined to give us infinite options? Here's some strategies I have found genuinely helpful. Strategy 1: practice intentional limitation. Instead of trying to evaluate every possible option, artificially limit your choices. Give yourself a rule. Look at the first 3 restaurants within walking distance. Pick one. Consider only the first 5 job postings that meet your criteria. I started doing this with online shopping. Instead of scrolling through hundreds of options, I look at the first page of results, pick the best one from that group, and buy it. Has this led to some suboptimal purchases? Maybe. But it's also eliminated hours of decision fatigue and buyer's remorse. Strategy 2: embrace good enough. This is about becoming a satisficer instead of a maximizer. Before you start looking at options, define what good enough looks like. What are you actually wanting? What are your actual criteria? What would make you satisfied? Then, when you find something that meets those criteria, stop looking. Resist the urge to see what else is out there. I do this with hotels when I travel. My criteria are clean, safe, good location, under my budget. The first place that checks all those boxes gets my booking. I don't need the perfect hotel. I need a good enough place to sleep so I can enjoy the city. Strategy 3. Use the two option rule. For routine decisions, give yourself exactly two choices. Not one that can feel restrictive, not five. That's too many to easily compare. Two is the sweet spot. I lay out two outfits the night before. I keep two go to lunch orders for when I'm working. I have two different routes to work. It's enough variety to feel like I have agency, but not so much that I waste mental energy on trivial decisions. Strategy 4. Delegate or automate low stake decisions. Some decisions just aren't worth your mental energy. Find ways to eliminate them from your daily experience. I have the same breakfast every weekday. I buy the same brand of basic items like toothpaste and shampoo every time. I have a uniform of sorts for work clothes. This isn't about being boring, it's about reserving your decision making energy to choices that actually matter. Steve Jobs famously wore the same outfit every day for this reason. Obama did the same thing as president. They understood that decision fatigue is real, and every trivial choice you make reduces your capacity for important ones. Strategy 5. Practice commitment. This might be the most important one. Once you have made a choice, really commit to it. Stop second guessing, stop researching alternatives, stop wondering, what if? I learned this from a friend who told me something very profound. You can't live in the life you chose and the life you didn't choose at the same time. When you commit to your choice, you free up mental energy to actually make that choice work. Instead of wondering if you should have taken a different job, you put that energy into excelling at the job you have. Strategy 6. Reframe regret. Finally, change how you think about wrong choices. Every choice teaches you something about what you want and who you are. That restaurant that disappointed you, now you know what to avoid. That relationship that didn't work out, you learned what you actually need in a partner. There are a few permanently wrong choices. Most choices can be adjusted, evolved, or eventually changed if needed. The goal isn't to make a perfect choice, it's to make thoughtful choices and then live fully within them. So, does more choice make us less happy? Sometimes, yes. When we are overwhelmed by options, paralyzed by possibilities, or constantly second guessing our decisions, choice becomes a burden rather than a freedom. But choice itself isn't the enemy. The enemy is our relationship with choice, our cultural obsession with optimization, our fear of settling, our belief that there's always something better just around the corner. Here's what I want you to remember: the best life isn't the one with the most options, it's the one where you make good choices and then fully inhabit them. That means sometimes choosing the second best restaurant and having a great time anyway. It means committing to relationships and jobs and cities and letting them surprise you with what becomes possible when you stop looking elsewhere. It means understanding that satisfaction comes not from having chosen perfectly, but from choosing thoughtfully and then choosing again every day to make your choice work. Your homework, if you want it, it's simple. Pick one area of your life where you're suffering from too many choices. Maybe it's what to watch on Netflix, maybe it's where to eat lunch, maybe it's something bigger. Apply one of the strategies we talked about today. See what happens when you choose with intention rather than endless optimization. Thank you for spending your time with me exploring this fascinating corner of human psychology. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. You can reach me at my mail, which is in the description, or comment below and let me know your thoughts on this. And hey, if you're deciding whether to subscribe to this podcast, well, you've got two choices: subscribe or don't. I vote for subscribe, but then again, I'm biased. Until next time, I'm your host, and this is Curiosity and Co podcast. Choose thoughtfully, live fully, and remember sometimes good enough really is good enough. See you around. Ciao.